You spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
Oh my God! Please stop! Please stop!
Oh well, you don't let me do anything cool, so I had to get props.
Oh, that's so cool, Scott. How funny was when we were in the pre-show? You were like fangirling over our guest today, fanboying over our guest, and he's like, "You're like, I see you here and there," and he's like, "Yeah."
You know, it's one of those things. There's the guest that's coming on. There's other people. You know, it's kind of like sports figures. You just kind of leave them alone, so you kind of do their own thing. You don't want to bother them. Although our guest is very friendly and very approachable. But when we were talking the pre-show, I'm a product of the recession, 2008, 9, 10 wasn't that long ago. And so our guest has had a big impact on the city. But Aaron, how are you doing this beautiful weather? Because I know Bank of Blue Valley and Burns McDonnell are just out closing deals throughout the country and in Kansas City, because when it's sunny outside, people are in a good mood.
Right. I'm hoping this weather holds up for when we go to the Bank of Blue Valley March Madness party, which we will be at. And remember last year it was snowing and we were like in our like parkas and stuff. I'm hoping this holds up for a little while. So I'm doing good. I've got a big day tomorrow. Headed out of town. So dealing with that.
You know what? You should tell our boss, Lisa and Will, they usually are hosting a show at Bank of Blue Valley, that when you respond, because we're grabbing lunch with them, to let them know that we'll be at their party and that we'll invite a lot of the folks that have been on this show. And then also, I don't want to steal your thunder, but wow, people are commenting. And obviously people are excited about our guests on the show that you put together, Aaron.
Yeah, we got a lot of people over here commenting. Collis gave us some rocket ships. We got a lot of emojis. I want to know if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Let us know. Delvon, hello. Delvon's got to be busy. He's the guy that fixes all the Chiefs backs and all of that. He's like a PT for the Chiefs, so he's got to be busy this week. Justin says hello. Looks like he's watching on LinkedIn. Yeah, so it's a big week. We've got an amazing guest today. We've got the city's on fire, right, with the Super Bowl happening. So I got my Super Bowl nails ready. Headed there.
They're beautiful. Good for you.
So gonna make my debut in Arizona with these. So wanted to get the show in, and I thought if it's a big week, we've got to have a big guest. Collis is watching LinkedIn in the house. So one of my favorite people is going to join us today, and I think that Big Blue Valley and Burns and McDonnell are geeked out about this person being on their show because, I mean, to be honest, he is one of my favorite people. Paul, loyally watching on LinkedIn. He's one of my favorite people. I do not get to hang out with him very often. Where we do most of our chatting is Facebook messages, and we are both really hitting TikTok really hard. And you know that there are not a lot of people in the city hitting TikTok like I think they should, except for today's guest.
Wow. Interesting facts.
I mean, he's got a really good TikTok following starting to grow. So I kind of use it to learn the algorithms, but he's been watching and we've been chatting on there. So I'm really excited. Delvon does say he is in his hotel room in Arizona, sports massage therapist with some amazing Chiefs players. So Delvon is ready for the game. All right, guys.
We'll be seeing each other soon because, not to toot your own horn, you're also going to the Waste Management Tour as well and the Super Bowl. So, hopefully, you may, knock on wood, you may have a parade for you when you get home to celebrate Aaron Fulk getting back to Kansas City.
Yes, I'm sure that's what it is. All right, listen, I told our guests we were going to play this cheesy music. I feel like he's like you.
I love it.
So bad. He's already jamming out. All right, get your questions ready. You guys all have been wanting to ask him questions for a long time. He's got all the exits. I literally just said, just be my mentor. Just be my friend and my mentor. Teach me how to do this. the one, the only, Matt Watts.
What's up, guys?
Isn't that music
Ew.
the worst?
So when do we get drinks? Like I thought we were promised drinks.
Well,
Oh.
we put it. We stocked your liquor cabinet. It's right. It's in there.
Figured
So-
you had to have a bar somewhere in there.
Now-
Somewhere in the house.
I've got one for you. Here you go.
Oh, that's a way to open it. Is that a? Oh my gosh,
Oh my gosh, that's
that's
insane.
awesome! Look at that.
All right. Now the bad news is it's empty.
Oh no.
Oh, I was gonna say you have to have like a custom wine opener.
But
I was
this
gonna
is
say we actually held off on the drinks today because shouldn't you be supportive of your fifth child on the way?
I am. Yeah, that's right. Number 5. And so I have 4 sons, and the 5th one's a girl.
Congratulations, Matt. That's awesome.
Oh, this is
So when did you get that news?
Well, so we're having the baby in April. So we found out 3 or 4 months ago now. But yeah.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. Congrats.
It's a big deal. Okay, Travis says he does have his drink. So he's drinking with you. All right, Matt, we're gonna start off like we do every show. I think everybody in the world knows who you are, but who are you? What do you do? And how did you get to Kansas City?
I'm just a guy looking for something to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you got to
it.
go longer than that.
Guy looking for something to do.
Where'd you
So
grow
I
up?
I was actually born in Oklahoma in a trailer park and living the American dream. And my parents really instilled a lot of hard work ethics into me, and so I've always been kind of a go-getter and an opportunistic guy. And started out working at the flea market. So I've maybe been to like the 63rd Street swap shop. I was there every single weekend for years with my dad, and so just kind of grew up as an entrepreneur. Always been an entrepreneur, and lived in Kansas City now for 35 years or so. And yeah, that's kind of where it started.
So, little background from your professional career. Where did you work first, and then when did you start your own company? What was that company? And just start from there.
Yeah, well, so my very first job was working in a screen printing place in King Louis in Grandview, and then I worked at Walmart and stuff. But yeah, my first professional job, I worked at my first computer programming job, anyways. I worked at a place called Ticket Solutions, which sells concert and sporting tickets, and they were acquired by Tickets for Less. So that was where I first learned to do software development, and then kind of actually at the exact same time. Before that, I was working at Sears selling computers, and a car dealer came in to buy a computer from me. And so that's what originally created my connection to automotive. Is I ended up rebuilding a whole database for this guy. Shout out to Country Hill Motors in Merriam. So that's where I first got into automotive. And when I first started Vin Solutions, my first company, my original co-founder actually worked for autotrader.com, ironically enough, and which is who we later sold the company to. He got fired from autotrader.com because of our little side hustle that we started. But he was just looking for somebody to upload pictures of cars to the internet. So he'd go to car dealers. This was 2003, and say, "Hey, you should list your cars for sale on autotrader.com." And everybody would look at him like he's crazy because it was the internet, and who the hell had a digital camera to even take pictures of cars and upload them to the internet? Like, it was a foreign thing then, right? This was before the iPhone. Like, this was 2003. And so, yeah, he went around taking pictures of cars for people and uploading to the internet, and he was looking for somebody like me to help automate that. And boom, we had a business. That was it. The rest was history.
Is Danny at Country Hill Motors? Is that who came and bought the computer?
No, it was his dad. His
Wow.
dad's name is John. And yeah, so John was actually the person. So yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's so crazy because 2003 was not that long ago, yet we couldn't do any of the stuff that we now take for granted. And you kind of swooped in there, kind of like Mark Cuban swooped in for sports. You swooped in for cars.
Well, so when I worked at Sears, that was like 2000, 2001 or something like that. When I was in college, went to DeVry. We were selling digital cameras, but the best digital camera we had was like a giant one that was really big, and it took a 3.5-inch floppy drive. And it was $1,000. Like that was the thing back then. Even a little past then, like you started getting compact flash cards and SD cards. Like, if you guys remember all that stuff, right? Like, that was the early 2000s. So we were right on the cusp of that. And when we originally started the company, our goal was to basically do inventory, like data syndication, right? So it's like the dealers could put all of their pricing, their vehicles, their photos, all that stuff in one place, and then we would send it to wherever they wanted to market their cars to, which would be Auto Trader and Cars.com or eBay or like all these kinds of places, right? So that's where it started.
Wow.
So then keep going on the track after Vin Solutions. How long did you run it? And then what year did you sell it? And then what do you decide to get into next?
Yeah, so so the company started out, we were doing the inventory stuff, and then we eventually started doing internet marketing, like CRM kind of stuff for car dealers. So think about if you go to autotrader.com and you submit a lead, that lead would electronically flow into our system, and the salespeople would use it to track, that you submitted a lead and follow up with them and all that kind of stuff. So that really went well, and we were like at the right place at the right time for all that internet lead stuff. So like not only they were putting their inventory online, but then all the shoppers started really shopping online, right? Like online shopping became a thing. And so we were kind of the right place at the right time with that technology. And then the recession hit in 2008, 2009, and GM and Chrysler went bankrupt. Like we thought we were toast, like what's going to happen, right? And it was actually a blessing for us because all these car dealers that were spending a lot of money on traditional advertising all of a sudden decided wanted to go all in on digital, right? So they needed a product like ours. So we were in the right place at the right time. We were one of the very first people to build a SaaS product, like a true cloud-based, web-based product. Before the cloud, we didn't have Azure or AWS or any of that stuff. So we had to do it the hard way, without those things. So we really took off like a rocket in 2008, 2009. Like the company doubled in size every year. And so we sold it in 2011 to autotrader.com, and we were doing like 35 million a year in revenue. And the company was bootstrapped, never took any VC funds or anything.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a quick question because I was by no means building a 9-figure company in 2008, but I was in property management, which also took off in 2008 when everybody lost their homes. They moved into apartments, right? So I feel like I didn't go through the recession like other people. Do you feel like that made it, when COVID hit, do you feel like that gave you a disadvantage or more of an advantage because you didn't quite feel like that? Because I feel like some of my friends that had gone through the recession got very scared, and others were like, I've done this. And I was like, I haven't done this, but it didn't really feel bad last time. So do you feel like it gave you an advantage or disadvantage?
I think it comes down to understanding what your business service is and how that downturn is going to affect you, right? So, the thing is, any kind of downturn, there are winners and losers, right? You mentioned being in the property management space. Imagine being the people that had to clean up foreclosed houses. Mm-hmm. Like they were crazy busy, right? Like there's always winners and losers. And even with COVID, anybody who made any kind of games that you would use at home or fitness equipment, all sorts of different things. There were all sorts of industries that took off like crazy booms during COVID because of that. But I also had invested in a company that provided labor for like events, like trade shows and stuff. Of course, that was dead, like went literally to zero, right? So there were definitely winners and losers. And in some people, you don't necessarily know, are you going to be a winner or are you going to be a loser? You just have to kind of figure out like, oh, do we reposition what we do now? Do we, change the story and the message a little bit? Do we tweak the product a little bit? How do we survive this thing? Or some of them, like if you're in the event spacing thing, maybe you're just dead, or you're like, hey, maybe our people can help you do COVID testing now. And we provide people for that, right? Like, how do you pivot to do that? Like there's a local company here. I can't remember what it's called. They do lots of, drug screening and all this different like health screening stuff. So of course they pivoted into doing COVID testing.
Examinetics.
Right? So it might be them. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes, it's Examinetics. Exactly what it is. So like they were a good example. Like they, it didn't necessarily hurt them, but it helped them. They could kind of pivot into it. Right. So everybody just kind of takes it differently.
Okay. So then most people's story goes like this. They maybe start a couple companies, but then they have the big one, right? Not everybody's story, but usually when a story goes like that, but then they retire or they just chill out, or they maybe do some investments, but they take a backseat. Not you. You've started quite a few companies since, and you're an investor in quite a few companies. So talk about a little bit about those companies. And I mean, how do you just keep going and keep going and keep going? And are you trying to beat out the big success story? Like what's that thought process?
I think when you're an entrepreneur, it's also just sort of a disease that you can't help, and so you just keep doing it. I mean, when we sold my first company, I was also 29 years old. Okay, so it's not like I was ready to retire. I'm not gonna go like golf every day. Like I'm not gonna go buy a island or some crazy story, whatever people think that is. I wasn't gonna do any of those things. I did take a few months off, and then basically started another company, which was Stackify, and I did that for several years. Um, it's I don't know, I'm just a problem solver. I enjoy business. I like business. I really love talking to other entrepreneurs. Me and Matt DeCourcy and a couple others host the Startup Hustle podcast. I have a lot of fun doing that too. So I love talking to other entrepreneurs. I like investing. I like all of it. I like being part of the entrepreneur community, being an advisor, trying to help other people. Like that is very fulfilling to me.
And you've been doing Startup Hustle for how long? And
5 years.
5 years. And you can find it on any streaming service, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's actually, so we've done, I think, like 1,040 episodes, and a huge percentage of them highlight Kansas City related entrepreneurs and companies. So it's not just all about Kansas City, but there's a lot of Kansas City on the show as well.
That's how we originally met, as I can
Yeah.
remember. How many companies have you built and sold?
So I've started 3 companies and sold 2 of them.
Okay.
And
how
so
many companies are you currently working within?
I guess 3 or 4, but I mean, I've invested in a bunch of different things that I, am not part of, but, I'm myself and Matt DeCourcy own Full Scale, which does software development for other people. And that was a byproduct of partly of Stackify. Like I needed to hire a bunch of people, and Matt kind of convinced me. He's like, "Hey, I've been doing this for a while. Why don't we, set up an office in the Philippines and do this?" And so that kind of started as an accidental business, which now has 300 employees, which is crazy. And being a, I guess, international entrepreneur now, which is a whole different thing, like trying to figure out labor laws and how to start a business in another country. Like we could talk about that for a while. That's its own craziness, but that's been fun. And, he runs that business. That's his baby. So.
And then before we got on this show, we were talking about you have a new business you've started, but then I brought that up and you said, but I'm also going to start another one in a few weeks, right? Is it just nonstop? And how do you do your time? How do you do your time?
I told you, I'm just a guy looking for something to do. I told you.
5 kids, multiple businesses. I feel like
yeah. Well, like I said, Matt runs Full Scale, so I don't spend a whole lot of time on that. And I also work at a company now called Camp Digital. It's actually owned by some old colleagues from Vin Solutions. They recruited me to help them with that business, and so I'm helping with them. And our goal is to kind of spawn another kind of new venture out of that. So we're working on that. We'll see where that goes soon. So stay tuned.
So one of the other things I think that you do really well is you have not burnt many bridges in Kansas City, if any, that I know of. I was at lunch the other day with Scott Lippert, and I know you guys were in the same office space for a long time.
Yeah.
Right? And he just was raving about you, right? He said, I haven't seen him in a long time, but just telling me stories of your guys' friendship. And I thought every time I talk to somebody about Matt Watson, like they have wonderful things to say. That can be hard as an entrepreneur sometimes, especially when you're going through like the stressful part and trying to figure out your business and your culture and all that kind of stuff. What is your best advice in that space where you just keep really great relationships?
Honestly, I would say I'm probably not very good at it. I think there's been, and what I mean by that is like, as far as being involved in the community, I think there's been periods of time where I've been like super involved, and then I like heads down, just kind of disappear for a while and then kind of pop back up. And honestly, it's something that I need to do more of. I'm trying to do more of now, of, once or twice a week, making sure I meet with, different people or whatever. And like new people actually, because you just never know who you're going to meet and the connections they have, and building meaningful relationships and friendships with people. I mean, we all need friends as well, not just, business partners, relationships and stuff. We need like meaningful, like real friendships too. So it's just trying to do all those things that we need to spend time on. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not necessarily for everybody. I mean, I will actually, like, if I meet with somebody, I'll be the first one to tell them like, your idea sucks and this is why. But honestly, almost every one of them comes back later and like, Matt, thank you.
Right.
So they may not like hearing it when they hear it the first time, but I think they're really super appreciative later.
Yeah, when Bank of Blue Valley CEO Bob Bernier, that's just revered in this town, just has a really good ability of, I call it radical candor, and in the nicest way possible. And I think that's a skill set that you've developed over time, because you have every situation you're in, it just, there's a lot of gravity to the conversation. So how do you
Yeah.
also choose to spend time or vet people when you decide to take a meeting? So if someone's on the show, I'd always say, don't reach out to someone that's a CEO unless you've really, really done your research and you have an idea. But how do you decipher on who you meet with and who you don't meet with?
I mean, I usually just somebody that has similar background to me, or could I don't know, relationships could benefit me, or we have things in common, whatever. I mean, I'm not that super picky about all of it. And the thing is, you never know with who you're going to meet what you could get out of it, right? Like could be the most random person, but they're like, oh yeah, I just also am best friends with Patrick Mahomes. You should come over tomorrow. Like, you just, who the hell knows, right? You just never know when you meet with people. And so I've learned that you just kind of go into it, with no like real set like expectations.
I like that. I want to see, we've got quite a few things coming over here. Paul said Ticket Solutions was Jake Lindmark ruled. Justin said back in the flip phone era is what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Hollis Mrs. Sears. I think there's one left. Travis says Mavica, which I don't know what that means, but he also said, does his VC funding come through? So there's all sorts of questions over here. Speaking of VC funding, I wanted to pull that one up because one of my favorite stories is on Shark Tank, how they passed on the Ring doorbell, right? They all said, no, this will never happen. And that ends up being the biggest story. Are there any people that have come to you? You said you tell people, you're very candor about if their ideas suck. Are there any that have come to you, you've passed on, and then you've watched them just rise?
So the best example of that was Toby with iVerify. And so you mentioned Scott Lippert before. Like, I think he had came actually to the office there where I was at, which was Scott Lippert's company was at too, Balance Point back then. And met with Toby, and and he's telling me what they're doing. I'm like, dude, this sounds really cool. I have no idea how this is ever going to make any money. I just no idea. And but yeah, a few years later, they sold it for $100 million or whatever they did, and it was a big exit for them in the city. So
you're kicking yourself a little on that one?
Yeah, missed that one. And I've done a bunch of different angel investments, and honestly, it's only like 10 or 20% of them that turn into anything, right? That is the deal. And probably the best one I did was with Dealer Q, which is they're killing it here in Kansas City. Most people don't know who they are, but they were some people that came out of End Solutions and created some other automotive software, and they're killing it. They're crushing it. They're based in downtown Kansas City, and kudos to those guys. So I was lucky enough to be an early investor in that one, but a lot of the other ones I was unlucky enough to be an early investor in. So that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting from the CRM perspective. When I think of all the companies and their artificial intelligence, specifically when people can take the leads that you've created from Vin Solutions, but then communicate with 30,000 people at once. So how do you feel about kind of being an origin point and then all these companies that have kind of sprinkled through? Because Kansas City has, like, whether it's backlot cars or different CRMs, it's kind of crazy that a lot of it stems from people
Well, and that's one of my favorite things is that is how communities are successful, right? Just like in Silicon Valley, the original people at IBM or Intel or whatever, whoever it is, they leave and they go start something, and then people start something or whatever. And that's how the community grows. And then for Kansas City, it's also helped create a little bit of an epicenter around automotive related software, right? We have Auto Alert and Dealer Q and Conversica here and some other companies that part of the reason they're here is there's talent here, right? Just like if you wanted to build stuff in pharmaceutical or whatever, there's parts in the country where that would be a place to go. So that's a great thing. And honestly, probably, entrepreneurs talk about success and exits and all these things and whatever, but probably my favorite thing is, over my career, I've helped create over 1,000 jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of my absolute favorite things. And if there's any number that means a lot to me, it's that one.
I like that. Okay. You said you've had how many episodes of your podcast?
1,040, I think.
Wow. Who is your favorite? You don't need to say me. Just kidding. Who is your favorite person that you've ever interviewed? Who is your favorite person that you've ever interviewed?
Oh my gosh.
You can give a couple of them.
I mean, Laura Holt was definitely one of my favorites. Who was one of the founders of CarStar, who is like
I love him.
Yeah, so he's been around Kansas City, done a lot of things around mentoring and Hillsburg and different things, I think. So he was super awesome, and we always referred to him as Yoda. And he was the guy that we start the podcast with him, and he was the guy who said, "I'm just a guy looking for something to do." That actually was a quote from Laurel.
So that's you stole that line from him?
Stole that from Laurel, yeah.
And you guys have kind of a big international following on that podcast as well, right?
We definitely have listeners all over the world, like 190 countries or whatever. We get into the debate of what even counts as a country at some point there. But most of the audience is in the US, and there's definitely a large audience in Kansas City. And what blows me away is running into random people and they tell me they've listened to every single episode. And I'm like, who are you people that listen to every one of these episodes? It's crazy because I don't listen to any of them. And but it just blows my mind. There's people that have listened to over 1,000 of them.
Okay. When you were a little kid or, in high school, whatever, I remember seeing a picture of you. I don't know what I saw it on, but it was you in your Walmart vest when you worked at Walmart, right?
Yeah.
What did you think you'd be doing now? Did you know you were an entrepreneur? You said that kind of all happened by accident. What did you think? What was your plan to do when you were in that Walmart vest? What did your dream life look like? And where are you at on that dream life?
Well, I knew from an early age, like in my teenage years, that I wanted to do computer programming related stuff. So, actually my first experience with that was I was probably like 13, 14 years old playing bulletin board games. You'd dial up on a modem, like the old school modem, dial up, and play text-based games. So I'd play like Dungeons and Dragons games, and I wrote scripts that would play the games for me while I was asleep and in school. So I'd run around, kill a zombie, pick up the gold, wait to heal, and then go find the next zombie and kill it or whatever kind of thing, right? And I didn't write all those scripts. I found some of them online and modified them and whatever. But that was my first experience of computer programming. So believe it or not, but so I knew I wanted to do software development. I was always just very opportunistic. I was always the guy who would take random side projects or whatever. Like, I was just always like doing stuff, just looking for opportunities, didn't have any preset like goal, just had my eyes open and looking for opportunities. And I think that's the way most entrepreneurs are. They're just good problem solvers. They're looking for opportunities to do things or add value.
Do you think maybe that came a little bit, you talked about your dad as an entrepreneur. Do you think a lot of that hustle and ability to see opportunity in some way, shape, or form was an origin for you?
I think there's a few things there. I think some of it is the adversity. I definitely grew up very poor, lived with my dad, lived with my grandparents. And, if I wanted school clothes, I begged my uncle to buy them for me one year. Right. Like that was my, when I grew up, I, definitely was, I was definitely not the rich guy that, had success later. Like I grew up, very poor. And so was definitely very driven. And, I was fortunate enough to just be very intelligent, always really good at math and able to do the stuff. So, I think it was the product of hard work and being blessed with the talents that I have. And so, but I think hard work, definitely came from my parents and the, humble beginnings of it, right? Just, wanted to work and do stuff and have a better life. So, and probably my favorite part of all of this, besides the jobs created, was my dad was the first employee we ever had at Vin Solutions.
Oh, cool.
And he just retired at the end of last year after 16 years and 10 months.
Oh, wow.
And so that's probably one of my favorite things. So he was our first employee and we worked great together. Sometimes working together with family sucks, but he was awesome to work together, and 16 years retired from the company. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Closes out the show. I think hiring your dad as your first employee and creating 1,000 jobs is something really, really special. Aaron, I apologize for interrupting. Just wanted to have you close out the show here.
I was going to say we had 30 seconds left. What's your one piece of advice for other entrepreneurs or people that want to follow in your footsteps?
Just to do it. You have nothing to lose. Just go freaking do it. Stop making excuses. Stop tinkering around. Go figure out how to sell something. Go talk to customers. Too many people they tinker. They got lots of ideas, but they never talk to customers. They never try and sell it. They never do it. Just go freaking do it. What do you have to lose? Just go try.
I love it. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Go follow Matt on TikTok. He's a good follow, as well as here on LinkedIn. We will be back same time, same place next week. I want to say thank you for Bank of Blue Valley and Birds of McDonnell. Scott, thanks for co-hosting, and go Chiefs. We'll see you same time, same place next week.